Hello everyone, Professor Jonathan Calheros here, and I want to quickly go over my training agenda and also my Edmodo training group. And so let's start with my training agenda. The first thing I mentioned here is that this agenda is for an 8-hour professional development training workshop, which is designed for university and high school teachers. I did include the before, during, and after, which was in one of the documents that was shared with us. I think this is really important because this document, I will be sending it to my coordinator as well. She's the one organizing the training session, which will be taking place May 31st this year. So it's important for her to know the work that I will be putting into it, this training session before, during, and after. From my standpoint, so I think it's important to include that in there for that purpose. Then we got the actual training agenda. We start at 8 a.m. So we're going to have an intro to Edmodo, creating an Edmodo account, joining a group, and introductions. At 8:45, we're going to have our first discussion, which will be about blended learning. 9:15, we're going to go ahead with our second discussion, What's Your Why?, where teachers will be able to talk a little bit about their purposes on using Edmodo and some of their ideas or things they can do and how they believe Edmodo will help them to make their class more dynamic. And then at 9:30 we're going to go ahead and have our coffee break. We're here in Colombia, so we do have the best coffee in the world, so you must have a coffee break, of course. And then at 10 a.m. we're going to have our first assignment, which is create your own Edmodo classroom. So I'm going to go over all the basics on starting your own Edmodo classroom. Then at 10:30 we're going to have our second assignment, which is to post a welcome note to your class. 11 a.m. we're going to go with our third assignment, which is post your first Edmodo assignment. At 11:30 we finished the first session with the discussion about flipped classrooms and differentiated instruction. Finally, at 12 at noon we're going to have our lunch break, and we come back to class at 2 p.m. with an overview on the quiz option. And then at 2:30 we're going to have our fourth assignment, which is to create your first Edmodo quiz. At 3 p.m. we're going to have our fifth assignment, which is create your first Edmodo poll. Then at 3:30 we're going to have update your Edmodo profile and settings. And at 4 p.m. we're going to have a session with Q&A, discussion, and general tips and tricks. And 4:45 we're going to have our eighth assignment, which is Edmodo apps for differentiation. And at 5:30 we have our course wrap-up and also evaluation. So I believe that's an excellent agenda for this training session, 8-hour training session. And I want to thank the teachers that have shared with us the excellent documents to help us to come up with our agenda. And lastly, I'm going to have my during and after portion here of my agenda. That's for the coordinator and for that purpose. Very good. Lastly, I want to mention I have the requirements for training there and give out evaluation form to participants and complete the training summary form. Now let's take a look at my actual Edmodo training group here. So in my main page I have a welcome note for my training group. As I mentioned before, our training session begins on May 31st, and they will learn all the basics of Edmodo. I talk about the share and discuss small group, and I asked them to introduce themselves in our discussion group. I divided this training course in 4 modules. I think it works really well since it's an 8-hour session. So I divided into 4 modules. So the first module, I already put a welcome note there, some of the tasks. And so they have the quiz, key concepts in blended learning assignment. They have to share a screenshot of their profile page in Edmodo, and they also have to answer a poll sharing their personal preference for learning. On Module 2, I already shared some of the tasks there. They have to create their own Edmodo classroom assignment. They're going to have an Edmodo features quiz. They're going to post a welcome note to their class assignment, library and share folders assignment, post your first Edmodo assignment, and participate in our Module 2 poll. On Module 3, we're going to have the welcome to the third module of our Edmodo training course. So that's where I'm going to be talking about flipped classrooms and differentiated instruction. So they're going to have an assignment about that. Create your first Edmodo quiz assignment. Create your first Edmodo poll. And blended learning, flipped classroom, and differentiated learning quiz. Excellent. On Module 4, we're going to go ahead and I have for the first task, share some ideas for Edmodo assignment. Task 2, conference scavenger hunt assignment. Edmodo apps for differentiation assignment. Fill out the course evaluation form. And lastly, turn in and share your completed final project assignment, which is a screencast tour of your group. So teachers, they'll do a screencast of their group, and you must have all the assignments there included, meaning that they will have a welcome note and etc. The due date is June 4th, so I'm going to give them an additional time. So it is, in class. I'm going to be there with them, but they do have time after the training session on May 31st to complete all the work and turn in by June 4th. So that's pretty much it. That's the project, and that's my training agenda. And as I've shown you, this is my Edmodo training group. So thank you very much for tuning in.